What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got the 2026 QB draft class is way better than 2025's, and the 2026 draft class, bro, it's just stacked in general, bro. Way more than 2025, from quarterback to receiver to defensive line to cornerback. You know what I'm saying? But this quarterback draft class is hella interesting. You got Lenore Sellers, who I feel like can win the Heisman this year if he cuts down the turnovers, bro. You know what I'm saying? He's like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen had a baby. You know what I'm saying? Built like Josh Allen, but fast as hell like Lamar. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully he balls out this year. You got Garrett Nussmeier, who I feel like can have a good year. I think he threw for over 4,000 yards last year. You know what I'm saying? He just be making some boneheaded mistakes, bro. You know what I'm saying? That happened a lot last year. He's up and down. But if he has a good year, I could definitely see him, possibly going to the Saints, because I think his dad is the offensive coordinator for them. Then you got Arch Manning, who I think is going to stay till 2027. But if he does have a good year, who knows, bro? But he's only had 2 career starts, so we don't know what we get with him yet. Then you got Cade Klubnik, who I feel like is going to be the best quarterback out of this whole bunch. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he's going to have a phenomenal year, him and Antonio Williams, you know what I'm saying? And Clemson, they got a lot of superstars coming out of the draft, bro. That's going to be first-round picks. You got, obviously, Cade Klubnik, Antonio Williams, who could be a first-round pick, TJ Parker on that D-line, AJ Terrell's little brother, Avion Terrell, you know what I'm saying? They got some studs, bro. They got some studs. But then you got guys like Carson Beck. We ain't going to talk about that nigga. And my sleeper for this year's, next year's quarterback draft class is Sam Levitt, bro. I feel like he's going to be flying under the radar. And with a good year, I definitely could see him sneaking into the first round, 100%. But we're going to go ahead and check this vid out real quick.
The 2025 quarterback draft class, let's be honest, was not very good. However, the 2026 quarterback draft class is looking much better, and I think it has the potential to be just as good as the 2024 quarterback draft class. So in today's video, let's cover the 2026 quarterback draft class.
I bet.
Subscribe if you're new. Let's hop into it. So we're going to begin this off with a quarterback who I don't know if he's actually going to come out next year, but I think there is at least a chance, and I think we should at least talk about it. That's, of course, Arch Manning.
Yeah.
No, Arch Manning's only 20 years old, so he still has a lot of development. He also just hasn't played a ton. He's only started, I think, like 2 games and has seen some spot stars, some spot moments against the Texas A&M Aggies and the Georgia Bulldogs. So
he's got some good targets to throw to.
Played a ton, and I also kind of don't think he's going to come out this year just because of how the Mannings typically do things. However, with that said, there's a lot to like about Arch's game. He's clearly much more athletic than any other Manning that's ever been in the league before.
And that's scary. I'm not going to lie. That is terrifying.
Like, he's genuinely a really good athlete. He has some plays on film where, I mean, he gets out of that pocket and he's out running corners and safeties and linebackers. Like, he can genuinely move. And that's a really nice trait to have when you're already having a solid enough arm like Arch does have. Arch, I think, is at his best, at least mostly last year, when he was able to roll out of the pocket, do some play action things. Like, he looked really sharp when he was doing that stuff. And I also think as a deep ball thrower, he's extremely accurate and typically on points. Now, I will say, I felt like he relied a little bit too much on taking shots down the field, whereas it would have been nicer to see him just show a bit more anticipation with some of the underneath stuff, some of the intermediate stuff. But it is nice to see a quarterback at Texas who can actually throw the ball deep, unlike, of course, Quinn Ewers. I think he's also shown flashes of being really good with anticipation, moving in the pocket, getting out of sacks, breaking plays, and breaking tackles and making plays downfield, which is all things that we've seen the Manning family do for years. Again, this is a guy who's only started 2 games, so we've only seen a very limited sample size, and I want to see what he can do this upcoming season. As of right now, he's one of the betting favorites to actually win the Heisman, so clearly there's a lot of anticipation and hope for Arch Manning. I do think it's rightfully so. There's a lot.
My top 4 Heisman finalists: Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers. Got to throw Jeremiah Smith in there. And I'm gonna say I'm gonna throw in a wild card, bro. Who else? We gotta throw some defense in there. I'm gonna say TJ Parker. I'm gonna say TJ Parker.
A lot of talent in this kid. He just needs to put it out on the field. I don't know 100% if he will come out next year. I think there's a very good chance that the Mannings take it slow and let him develop in college. However, if he's projected to go #1 overall, I have a very hard time seeing him actually return to college and risk injury and, risk a downgrade from his year before. So I do expect him to come back to Texas for at least
especially with
2
that
more
NIL
years,
money.
We'll have to wait and see. Next up, let's talk about Cade Klubnik, the
Yes,
Clemson
sir.
quarterback. And this is one of the biggest risers from this class. I did not think Cade Klubnik was very good at all in his first 2 years with Clemson, but this past year, he did look like a quarterback that could actually go top 5 in the NFL draft. He's well sized, has a really solid arm, is just as good, if not a better athlete than like Arch Manning. So he's just a really solid quarterback that can move in the pocket. He flashes anticipation. When he gets into a rhythm, it's really difficult to stop him. And again, when you're talking about a Clemson quarterback, we've seen guys like Trevor Lawrence really develop and make their way to the NFL. And I kind of see a little bit of some similar traits between Cade and Trevor Lawrence. Now, I don't think he'll be as projected as highly as Trevor, like Trevor was compared to Peyton Manning of all quarterbacks. But I do think Cade Klubnik has the repertoire, the skill set, the size, the athleticism to be a genuine starting quarterback in the NFL. He's a guy who can make all the throws on the football field. He was, I think, ranked top 5 within big time throws. They get 28 of them last year. So this is somebody who's not afraid to get the ball downfield. He has good talent around him with Clemson. Let's not deny it. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a guy who was just able to develop. And it's rare for quarterbacks, especially in today's modern era of NIL. It's rare for teams to actually develop quarterbacks and not develop them on the bench. Like Cade Klubnik has been the starter for Clemson his majority of his career. And he hasn't been really good the past couple years, except for last year. But it kind of shows you just Clemson's commitment to Cade Klubnik to actually let him develop. It's not something you typically see too often. Typically, if you have a quarterback who even is a 5-star quarterback, like I could think of one like Spencer Rattler right off the top of my head, who really only had like a year and a half before everyone wanted to replace him. And for Clemson, they stuck with Cade Klubnik for multiple years now, and I think they're finally kind of seeing the benefits of being loyal and committing to a quarterback. This is a situation for Cade Klubnik where he was able to develop, keep growing and making mistakes, but learning from his mistakes. And I think this upcoming season, we're about to see Cade Klubnik really take another big step forward into becoming potentially a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. Let's go ahead and move on to Drew Allar. Now, Drew Allar.
Oh, I forgot. Man, I forgot about Drew Allar. My bad, gang. I mean, like, Drew Allar was like the main reason why Penn State lost in the playoffs last year, gang. If we keeping it a buck. Like, he got all the talent in the world. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? Arm talent is there. He just got to make better decisions with the football. He's got to make better decisions.
I apologize. I'll just say Allar for sake of video. Had he come out into this past year's draft, I do believe he would have been a first-round pick. I think, honestly, he might have very well ended up going number 2 or number 3 overall to the Browns or the Giants. Hell, he might have even went number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans, depending on how Tennessee would have viewed Cam Ward versus Drew Allar. But I do personally believe that Drew Allar, just based off pure potential, for sure, probably would have been taken above Shedeur Sanders, or would have been thought of highly in this past draft, I should say. He's definitely not a finished product, but I think what you see on film is definitely very solid. He can make any throw on the football field. He doesn't really make a bunch of turnover-worthy plays. Very accurate downfield. I think he processes the game very solidly. More of a pocket passing quarterback, but he can go downfield and run a little bit. He can also make plays on the run, play action, RPO. He can do all that stuff. In terms of like what he needs to work on, like every quarterback, he has some footwork issues. Just at times his accuracy could be a little bit off. And a lot of times he's just going to be somebody who just makes mistakes. And I think once he's out of rhythm, he can look really bad. I think if you watched his last game of the season this past year, where didn't really look that good. He looked really bad. And I think a lot of that was just because he was out of rhythm. And I think if you are Drew Allar, if you are Penn State, getting in a rhythm should be very important to put on some really good tape this upcoming season, because when he's in a rhythm, he's genuinely an awesome quarterback. It's just when he's out of rhythm and not playing up to his potential, man, the tape can be really rough to watch, like it was in the college football playoffs, and especially in his last game. But in 2026, Penn State has a very similar roster to what they had last year. In fact, I don't think they lost any of their running backs, or I don't think they lost too many big-time receivers either. So this is going to be a team in Penn State that is just going to be ready and locked and loaded to go all in next year for a potential national championship run. And if you are Drew Allar, I kind of don't feel like you have too many excuses to give as to why you may have fumbled at some point, why you may have not necessarily.
Tyler Warren was a big loss, though.
He has a physical look. He's 6'5", 230 plus pounds, so he's physically built. He can run smooth. Good operator in the pocket. He can make any throw. Just got to work on some technique issues, and I do believe that this is somebody who potentially could be a top pick in the draft. Again, I thought he could have been a top 5 pick this past year. Was he necessarily worth a top 5 pick? Probably not, but it just kind of shows you how bad last year's draft class was. But there was genuine hype about it. Like when he decided to go back to Penn State, I'm sure there was a lot of front offices that were really disappointed because they probably would have taken him number 2 or number 3 overall. He comes back. I think he's willing to take a bet on himself. We'll see if it pans out or if it doesn't pan out for him. Next, let's talk about Garrett Nussmeier, one of the older quarterback prospects in this draft. He's already 23 years old, so by the time he comes out next year, he'll be be,
I mean,
what,
kind of like
24 years
23. I
old?
feel like it's
He's
the
6'2".
sweet spot though. You know what I'm saying? 24 and beyond. That's kind of pushing it. You know what I'm saying? You got quarterbacks that are like 26 coming out of the draft. I feel like 23 is kind of like the sweet spot between a young and old prospect. You know what I'm saying? But
Well sized at about just over 200 pounds. He looks, I think, in my opinion, a little heavier than that. Garrett Nussmeier really just struggles from inconsistencies. There are times where Nussmeier just looks like an awesome quarterback, like one of the best in the country, and then he'll make a couple plays that are just really bad. Right now, he's a bit of a gunslinger, so he's not afraid to, make tight window throws, play with some anticipation, throw the ball deep, risk a interception for a big play. He's definitely somebody who does that. He ranked very highly in turnover-worthy plays last year with 18, so you typically want to see him kind of lower that number. Again, kind of like what I talked about with Drew Aller, when Garrett Nussmeier is in a rhythm and he's just making high-level throws and he's not playing fearful, he's definitely somebody who can make a lot of big-time plays. Now, LSU is one of the more talented teams out there. They've always had really good players around their quarterbacks, but I don't think that's what would have hurt the stock of Jaden Daniels. It didn't hurt his stock. Hell, he went number 2 overall. I think if Garrett has a similar season to Jaden where he really just breaks out in 2025 and can play with more consistency, then that will definitely be something that I want to see from him. Now, he isn't really much of a runner. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. He only had like less than 100 yards rushing last year, but I do think that there is some potential for him to be a bit of a playmaker out of pocket, out of kind of the system that is around him. Like when the play breaks down, he can roll out and make some plays downfield. It's not like he's a statue in the pocket, but doesn't really give you much as a running quarterback, which is fine. He's more of a pocket passing quarterback who I think could be a game manager at the NFL level, who also can at times make some big plays downfield. He can make every throw out there. Again, he's very well sized. He moves, in my opinion, well in the pocket. It just kind of comes down to can he hone in that gunslinging ability, and kind of like, in my opinion, Drew Aller, if Garrett were to have come out last year, I kind of believe that teams would have preferred his talent over a guy like Shedeur just based off what upside might look like for Garrett. So had he come out last year, maybe this is a hot take because he really only has like 1 year of proven productivity, but I kind of think he might have been a first-round pick, or at the bare minimum, like a second-round pick, and I think he would have gotten some opportunities to play next year. So for the fact that he come back to LSU, develop for another season, let's see if he can improve. Let's see if he can improve on some of his inconsistencies, some of his turnover-worthy plays, get more in a rhythm on the offense, and build more chemistry with the team around him. Because if he's able to do so, I do think Garrett Nussmeier has the potential to definitely be a first-round pick next year. And I think it's going to be a competition to see who's that second or third quarterback, and maybe Garrett Nussmeier could be the guy if he has a good year next year. Next, let's talk about Carson Beck. Now, Carson Beck was thought to have come out last year, but he ultimately went back to college for another year.
He was better off just
attending
transferring.
The University of Miami. Now, there's really two ways you can look at Carson Beck. You can look at the 2023 version of Carson Beck and say, hey,
Brock
that's a really
Bowers
good
merchant
quarterback
right
that
here.
had he played like
Real
that
shit.
last year would have probably been the number 1 or number 2 overall pick in this last draft. Or you could say the 2024 version of Carson Beck is a little bit more like the Carson Beck that we should expect in next year's season. Now, I want to be fair to Carson. I felt like Georgia offensively, especially with their receiving core and running back group, was significantly worse in 2024 than 2023. 23, you had Brock Bowers, McConkey. 24, I mean, it was Arian Smith and some tight ends that didn't get drafted. And I feel like it kind of showed on the film when Carson was in a rhythm, he looked really good. But there were so many plays out there where Carson put the ball in the receiver's chest and the receiver just dropped it. Like there were so many occasions like that where Carson made the right throw, the right play, and the receiver just didn't stem his route properly, or he just dropped the pass or whatever. And it made Carson Beck, in my opinion, have a worser season than maybe he wasn't really having. Now, again, I want to be fair to Georgia as well here. Carson did not play well, especially given the standards of what we saw in 2023. Because there was multiple times where and he looked out of sorts, he looked frazzled, he looked bad. Against Texas in the SEC championship game, he had some really bad throws. Against Bama in the first half, he had some terrible throws. I mean, pretty consistently throughout the season, it was up and down with Carson Beck, where he had some really good plays, and then he had a bunch of turnover-worthy plays. And there was a stretch last year where he was just throwing picks left and right. Now, fortunately for Georgia, or maybe unfortunately for Georgia, depending on how you view it, he did injure himself against Texas late into that game. And then, of course, the backup quarterback comes in and kind of limited what Georgia was going to do, just because you can't really rely on a backup quarterback in a national championship setting. But the Georgia defense was still legit. They still had a shot to potentially go deep. Hell, I think they won the SEC championship game. So they were a good team, but clearly the offense, in my opinion, was not very good. I do want to excuse Carson a little bit, but I do believe he does need to take a bulk of the blame. But in terms of what Carson is as a prospect, he's 6'4", 220 plus pounds. Now is going to Miami. A little bit of an older prospect. He'll be, I think, 23 years old when the draft does come around. At one point was a projected first overall pick because of his
that's the whole reason why he transferred
had a
to
down
Miami.
year. If he had came out last year, I do not think he would have been a first round pick. I think maybe he could have been the second round pick, but that's a big time maybe. I think he has a solid arm. I think he can make any throw on the field. He's not a statue in the pocket. He can roll out, but he's very much not like the greatest athlete in the world. He's a bit more of just a pure game managing quarterback that's going to sit in the pocket. In 2023, he showed glimpses of not being a turnover-worthy quarterback who just made the right throw at the right time, played with good timing, good anticipation, good accuracy. But again, in 2024, a lot of that stuff kind of went up the table in certain instances, and I felt like he didn't handle adversity quite well last year. Like there was times where he'd throw a pick, and he just didn't get out of that funk. He just consistently was kind of in the funk for the rest of the game, and he made enough plays in that game, in those games, to get them out of that situation. But by the time that he was in that situation, it kind of didn't look very good for him. So for Carson, I want to see how he can handle adversity this upcoming season. When he throws a pick for Miami, how does he look like the next series? Does he get back into a rhythm? Does he start playing like he should? How does he look in the locker room? How does he look on the bench when things aren't going his way? Those are all going to be questions that he has to handle. I do believe that the 2023 film is significantly better. So we'll have to see if Carson can potentially go back to his 2023 film because it looked a lot better in my opinion. Next up, let's talk about Sam Leavitt, the Arizona State quarterback. This is somebody who
is my sleeper
is super
right
young. He's only 20 years old, 6'2", 200 pounds, is now heading into, I believe, his junior season or his third year, I suppose, with Arizona State. Man, last year, dude, he was just a baller. Does not turn the ball over very much. Is super reliable.
And they got a dog receiver
well.
too.
He's a very good
Jordan
athlete.
Tyson,
He's accurate as hell.
Future first round pick
too, in my opinion, a genuine starting quarterback for a lot of big time schools. So just because he goes to Arizona State, do not think that this guy's not a good quarterback. He could very well, if he was in the transfer portal, he would get offers from Georgia, from UNC, from basically every single school that might need a quarterback. Like Sam Leavitt is genuinely a great quarterback, and I think he showed it off against Texas, where Texas was throwing everything at him, and Sam Leavitt did not waver. He made some big time throws downfield. He had a throw to Cam Scatterbo that was just nasty, and he made some plays all over the field against a Texas secondary that has starting safety in the NFL and Andrew Bakuba. I think he'll start for the Eagles. Jahdae Barron last year, Manny Muhammad, who's going to come out next year and potentially be a top pick, and Michael Taft, who's one of the best safeties in the country. Like Sam Leavitt was going up against that defense. Oh, I didn't even mention Anthony Hill, who's probably going to be the top linebacker in next year's class. But he went up against that defense and was just killing them. Like he was all over them the entire season. He was like that, not just against Texas, but every single game. He is just super reliable. I think he has some minor flaws to his game. Again, like he needs to work on footwork. His accuracy can be a little bit inconsistent, but man, he's got a good arm. He can make any throw on the football field. As an athlete, I think there's a legit upside for him to be a really good athlete. And when he gets into a situation where the pocket is collapsing, his athleticism sometimes can just take over, and he could be kind of a magician back there. So right now with Arizona State, I think the system is definitely catered to make him look great. So I want to see how he can look in more situations where Arizona State is going to have another year this upcoming season without Cam Scatterbo. So can he alleviate some of the pressure off Arizona State? I think this is a year where Sam either sinks or swims as a prospect, because a lot of the film last year was really good. Oh my gosh, and he has a chance, in my opinion, to be a top pick in this upcoming draft, in a similar vein to how Jaden Daniels was able to rise his stock. If Sam Leavitt can do that, I think there's a legit shot. He may even be as good to go number one overall if he can really reach his potential, because there's a lot to like about his game. It just kind of comes down to, can he reach it? So it'll be very interesting. He kind of reminds me a lot of like a Cade Klubnik, but maybe a little bit more athletic. So that's good news for Arizona State fans. But again, last year that team relied so heavily on Scatterbo. Let's see what this team looks like and what he looks like without that running back. Next up, let's talk about the South Carolina quarterback, Lenore Sellers. One of the more fun players to watch last year. He's very inexperienced. He's only played a handful of snaps for the South Carolina, only 772 snaps.
They got a bro, Nick Harbor too. I think he might be a potential first round pick if he can.
Just beautiful, you know what I'm saying? He can make any throw on the football field. He's also a really solid athlete.
That nigga, I think he 6'5", and he run like a 4.2, bro. That is scary. I'm not gonna lie, gang. If he can like get a better route tree, because I think last year was his first season as a receiver, because I think he was like a defensive lineman or something like that, edge rusher. But if they could get something out of him, that's gonna be nasty. I'm not gonna
get
lie.
out of the pocket and make some dynamic throws
Like
downfield.
a Randy
I think he's a very
Moss
smart
type
quarterback who doesn't put
receiver.
the ball in harm's way too often. He can make explosive plays. There's just a lot to like about him. He's got a solid arm that is
Right now,
for the
he's
most
just a
part pretty
track
accurate,
star.
but he does kind of struggle with some inconsistencies as well. There are times where on deep balls he will sail it, or he just needs to put more touch on it. There's times where I think he plays a little too fast, where he needs to kind of slow down, read the field a little bit better, and not necessarily play with so much excitement and so much nervousness with how the team is working around him. Now, in fairness to him, this is a South Carolina team that is just always going to be outgunned. They're just not as talented as all the other SEC talent out there. So I could kind of understand why he might play a little bit fast at times, but I do want to see him slow things down, really slow down his mental clock when the pocket
He had a
is
lot of
collapsing.
crucial turnovers
Just
last
take it
year.
as it is, make the right read, throw the dump offs, that sort of stuff. I also think at times his arm talent is just so good that he relies on it a little bit too much. So these are all small little concerns that I do have with his game. But again, we're talking about a young quarterback that's still developing, and there's a lot to like on the film with Lenore Sellers. Again, big arm, well sized. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He could run very well. I don't know if I'll see him necessarily as a rushing quarterback at the NFL level. I wouldn't go that far, but man, there are times where he can get out of the pocket, make some explosives downfield, and just like I can see him trucking some dudes in the NFL level if need be. There's a lot to like about Lenore Sellers. There's a young quarterback here who just is unbelievably talented. And if he were to come out next year, which there's not a guarantee he will, but if he were to come out next year and if he has a similar or somewhat better season than 2024, then I can definitely see a team willing to take a first round bet on this guy and just say, you know what, we can refine his game. I think South Carolina's in a situation where they have a great coach who I believe in. I think they'll develop this guy, help him kind of slow down the game, help with some of his inaccuracy issues at times, slow his footwork down, get him going in the right direction. And I think this quarterback genuinely has a chance to be a top quarterback in this upcoming class. Now, before I get to my last quarterback who I do want to talk about, there are a number of other quarterbacks that I think have the potential to play themselves into a top pick consideration. Guys like Taylon Green from Arkansas, Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt, Kevin Jennings from SMU. John Mateer, who's now in Oklahoma. I can see him potentially.
He love running, I tell you that.
Miller Moss from USC and a handful of other quarterbacks. But the last
didn't Miller Moss transfer?
Is Nico, and I hope I say this right, Iamilava? Amiliva?
Fuck him,
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I just call him Nico. Now,
like,
a lot of controversy with Nico.
Come on, gang. Like, why are you... This nigga wants more NIL money to play college football. Like, wasn't he making like $8 million or something like that? Like, come on, bro. Like, you fucking it up for everybody else.
Not been very good to Tennessee nor Nico. Let's just keep it how it is.
Like, bro, it's not even that good to be
recapping in case you don't know. So
like, NIL money and shit.
When they recruited Nico, they gave him a bunch of money. I want to say it was $8 million over 4 years. So that equates to about $2 million a year. And he played his rookie season or his freshman year. He didn't play too much. And then this most recent year, he started for the team. And he wasn't bad. He had some good moments. Definitely there were some games where Nico looked legit, but there was also moments where the lights looked a little bit too bright for him,
like
or
that
he just wasn't
OSU
making the right reads. And I also think at times the system that Tennessee runs kind of hurt them as well. But I thought Nico had a solid first year starting. And then in the offseason, things were looking really good for Nico. Tennessee was projected to be a really good team next year. And then he asked for more money. He asked for, I want to say, $4 million a year, basically doubling his pay. And Tennessee stood that they weren't going to do that. And so he enters the transfer portal. He leaves Tennessee essentially for money. And now I think he's committed to UCLA. Now, I will say this. I don't want to put all the blame on Nico. I know he's going to get a ton of criticism and a lot of hate for what he did. And I can understand why. But I don't think we should fully blame Nico, because I think there should be some blame put on his management team, which I believe is just his dad. So there should be a lot of blame put on there. Because now he's in a situation with UCLA with not as talented of a roster. Also, I think making less than $2 million now. So kind of a big time fumble from that family. But I will say, it's not necessarily the worst thing for Nico. I think UCLA runs a more NFL system than Tennessee. Like, Tennessee is as college-y as it gets. Like, they have these dudes basically on the sideline creating as much space as possible, and you just don't see that in the NFL. Like, receivers don't line up basically out of bounds, essentially. That's kind of like where they are. They're like 2 steps inside from out of bounds. It's kind of ridiculous, but it works in college because you can just create so much space to work with, and it allows the quarterback to play a little bit less fearful because there's just so much more space to work with instead of these super condensed formations where you have to play with more anticipation, you have to play with the more tight window throws. I think now in UCLA for Nico, Again, I'm not a UCLA fan. I don't know exactly what system they run, but I'm assuming that they probably run a bit more of an NFL-like system because I don't think it gets more collegey than Tennessee. Hopefully he plays in a situation where he can develop as a quarterback, because I don't necessarily think Tennessee was the greatest spot for him. Frankly, I was always a bit questionable about any big-time quarterback prospect going to Tennessee, just simply put because of the system that they do run. But in terms of who the prospect is of Nico, he's 6'6", he's 215 pounds, a little bit lankier than what you would like. He's tall as hell, he just is really lanky, but he's a good athlete. He can run around nicely. I think he has an arm that can make any throw on the football field. He showed glimpses of being able to play with some anticipation. He has some good accuracy. For me, it just kind of came down to there was a lot of inconsistencies with his tape. His footwork also can be erratic at times. You want to see him play just smarter. Like, there are times where I think he misses wide open reads, or he's just not willing to let the ball fly when there's opportunities for him to do so. So there's a lot to work on his game, but I think what you're getting in terms of just a package quarterback, you're getting a really well-sized guy who can move nicely, has a good arm, and I think if he were to come out next year, let's say he has a slightly better season and plays better, I think he could play himself into a top 3 round pick just because of the athlete that he is, the way that he's built, talent that is within him. There will be a team that's willing to bank on the upside of this guy. Again, I do think now there has to be some question marks regarding, I don't want to say his character, because from what I've heard, he's a good kid, but maybe his love for the game, his loyalty to a program, his loyalty to a team, which is things you want to see in the NFL. But yeah, the whole NIL thing was a little bit disappointing from him. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, who is your top quarterback heading into the 2026 quarterback draft class? And if there's a quarterback who I did not talk about in this video, you guys let me know in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to respond to you. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.
Hey, man, shit. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. This 2020 draft class in general, bro, is about to be crazy. I'm not going to lie. You know what I'm saying? But for the quarterback class, I think Cade Klubnik's definitely going to be the best out of the bunch. You know what I'm saying? Arch, I don't think he's coming out. You know what I'm saying? I still can't believe I forgot Drew Aller, too, bro. That's crazy. But Drew Aller, if he can cut down on his mistakes, like, it's not really like a turnover thing. It's just decision making with him, bro. It's just iffy sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Sam Levitt, definitely my sleeper. Lenore Sellers, he cuts down the turnovers, bro. He gonna be a top 5 pick for sure. Garrett Nussmeier, same thing with him, bro. Just the inconsistencies with him. Carson Beck, I don't know with him, but hey, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Y'all let me know what other NFL videos I'm going to react to. Without further ado, I'm out.
I'ma make them feel me, make them people when they show me. And if you don't know me, I'ma make sure that you know me. I hate to say it, but I really think I'm broke. But I know I'm chosen, I really know I'm chosen. I know I'm chosen. I was just lost a year ago, but now I'm focused. When good at sports, this microphone can be my trophy. Not taking drugs, I found a better way of coping.